You mentioned sleep, which is also incredibly important. A lot of people's minds spin in evening time and they struggle to wind down and fall asleep. So, a way to get into the mindset of sleep, if you are one of those people where your mind is just spinning, 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 to-do lists or worrying or thinking about the future or the past or whatever it is, if you get a journal, it could be a cute journal. It could be a piece of paper if you don't want to spend the money on a journal. Like it really could be anything. But do this exercise. It's called a brain dump, and just write everything down that's in your mind. Like it doesn't need to make sense. It doesn't need to be complete sentences or be grammatically correct or anything like that. You're just literally dumping what's in your head.
Your relationship with money matters. I'm Michelle Perkins, and this is the Money and You podcast, where I will be breaking down your relationship with money, offering tough love money tips, and a money dating plan that will focus on lifting the barriers to success to help pave the way for better money practices and increased wealth. It's time to take control to live a limit-free life. It starts today. Hello, and welcome to the Money and You Show. I'm your host, Michelle Perkins, and so excited for today's show. I have a great guest today, and we'd love to talk about financial well-being. We're going to talk about that and overall well-being and all kinds of wonderful feel-good things today with a very special guest who is zooming in from Minnesota. I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little about Marnie Dacus Marmette. She's an author. My Song Unleashed is the name of her book. She's a serial entrepreneur, a podcaster, a board-certified health coach, and the founder of Zenful Life Coaching, a practice dedicated to helping women and teens create a healthier and happier life. She supports clients in implementing personalized nutrition and wellness plans and making gradual, sustainable lifestyle changes. Her areas of expertise include longevity, mind, body, spirit, holistic health, gut health, yoga, mindfulness, and meditation. As co-creator and co-host of the Art of Living Well podcast, Marnie empowers listeners to challenge the status quo, and she provides information and inspiration for living their healthiest and most authentic life. She has also owned and operated Chili Bean Promotions, a promotional products company, for more than 20 years. Marnie lives in Minnesota, where she enjoys an active lifestyle, traveling, photography, reading, and spending time with family, friends, and her Labradoodle, Lila, or Lila. I'm not sure about that. So welcome, Marnie. So appreciate you being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It is Lila, by the way.
It is? Okay, good.
I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you. And I really want to dive in because, we talk so much on this show about money and about your relationship with money. And so I'm imagining that some people are like, why are we talking to a health coach? But we had a great conversation, and I think it's going to become very apparent, and it'll be revealed to everybody listening. So stay with us, why this show actually matters to your financial success and well-being as well. So do you want to give us a little additional background, a couple of stories about what you do and why?
Well, as you could tell from my bio, I do a lot of different things, but in terms of like my health and wellness coaching, I work with people to really hone in on what they want so that they can live their happiest and healthiest and really their most authentic life. And that really is in mind, body wellness. It could be in things like nutrition and movement, but also mindset and sleep and stress. And we could talk about money and we could talk about relationships, and it really just covers the gamut of a lot of different things. And it's really a lot about working with somebody and asking the right questions and guiding them and helping them to discover the answers within themselves, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. And, I love that you brought up stress. I actually love talking to therapists, to, people who are more in a holistic wellness field about money, because money is one of the leading causes of stress. And it's one of the leading, problems that people actually have. It's one of the leading things that creates, a divorce. I mean, it's really pervasive in our lives. As I like to say, almost every decision we make, for good or bad, is a money decision. There's a money component anyway. There's a money component to you coming on the show today. You could be talking to a client. There's a money component to going out to lunch after the show. There's a money component to so many things that we do, and it's sort of always in the background. And so I think it's super important for people to understand that money is much more than, just... It's much more than numbers, and it's very emotional, and it impacts our health. So it's part of the holistic kind of health arena, in my opinion. So,
for sure. And I like to say, I mean, I do hear from people, oh, I can't be healthy because it's too expensive. And first of all, I believe health is a birthright, but there are many ways to be healthy without spending money.
That's a great point. And I'm trying to remember now if we talked about this before, but, finding those, that is a big, that's an excuse or a reason that people use all the time. I can't buy organic. I can't, go to certain markets. And it's a reality. I'm not dismissing that as silliness. I mean, it is unfortunate the way our food industry works as well. It makes it very challenging sometimes for people to eat properly and do the things they need to do, or be able to take the time to exercise, even if you're working more than one job. And it runs the whole gamut. But what can people do, since we have you here? I'll pick your brain a little about what is some advice that is not necessarily expensive that will allow people to have the health they need. Because you mentioned money mindset. It's very difficult to have the type of mindset you need to go forth and be successful in life if you're sleep deprived, if you eat poorly, if you're, not exercising. It was very tied together.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the first thing that a person can do that is you can go outside and take a walk. And what that does to your mindset and your well-being, I mean, there have been so many studies across the board about what it does to you to just get outside in nature. And you're moving your body. If you don't have a lot of time, if you are working multiple jobs, you could take a 10-minute walk 3 times a day, right? When you get up in the morning, walk around your block. Lunchtime, take a quick walk. Evening time, take a quick walk. If it's dark outside, buy a headlamp, use your phone light. Just get outside and move your body. If that feels hard and you're like in a job where you are sitting at a desk and you feel like you have no time, and that in itself is a whole discussion, because I'm a big believer of you need to make time for the things that are important to you. But stand up and do, 25 jumping jacks, and, go on to YouTube or online and just find like a quick 10-minute movement, workout, mobility, anything to get your body going. You could dance, but movement is super, super important. You don't need a Peloton bike. You don't need a fancy gym membership. You don't need those things to get your body moving. And I think a lot of people forget that and say, oh, I can't do it for X, Y, and Z reason. Sometimes it is money. And so then I would push back a little bit and say, well, what is really holding you back? Because it's not money.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. And of course, money makes things easier. So if you have the money to go to a very fancy gym, you will walk in there and you'll automatically work out, because what else are you going to do in the gym? But, but everything that you do, not everything, but a lot of what you do in the gym, you can do at home, but it takes definitely an extra bit of discipline to get yourself to do it and to stop and to make the time. So I love what you're saying, though, because we do have to think that way. Instead of thinking, I don't have the money, you can ask yourself the question, with the money I have, how can I make myself as healthy as I want to be? And I think that's kind of a better question to ask yourself. I think we ask ourselves a lot of hard questions, like how can I possibly find the time to do this or that? And that in itself will get into your mindset and make it seem that it's impossible. And so as a mindset person yourself, how do you help people shift out of these more negative perspectives or and move towards something more hopeful?
Well, I think, I'm sure that your listeners have heard this before, but having a mindset of gratitude is really, really helpful, right? So, one thing I like to do is when I wake up in the morning, I'm still lying in bed. I'll lay on my back. I'll put one hand on my belly and one hand on my heart. And my eyes will be closed and I'll just take like 10 really deep breaths. And when I'm finished taking those 10 deep breaths, I like to think about how I want my day to look. So I'm thinking about whatever I have in the course of the day and how I want it to be. So I'm kind of setting the stage or setting the tone for my day. And then at the end of the day, I'll do something similar. I won't do it in bed, but maybe I'm just sitting on the floor or sitting in a chair. You can really be anywhere. You can lay on your back, take those deep breaths again, and just have a little bit of gratitude for the day. Like what went well today? What are you grateful for? It can be anything. And, another way to do this is to write it down, or you can just think about it. You can think about it while you're taking your walk. But just the act of bringing yourself into the present and thinking about something that went well for you or a few things that went well and having gratitude really starts a wonderful mindset shift, and getting into this practice regularly, especially.
Yeah, I want to thank you for that. I do hear that answer quite a bit, and it was actually it goes way back to the men who used to write about money way back. Wallace Wattles and the Science of Getting Rich talks about gratitude in his book from 1910. And he's a man, so this isn't like a soft skill, if you will. This is like really.
It's hard. I mean, it's hard for people actually to get into this habit.
It is.
But it is free. It's free and it does work. I mean, that's why there are so many studies about it and why so many people are talking about it.
I know. It's literally my favorite topic. I mean, I think just like with walking, and if you're a type A personality, you can combine the two. You go for a walk and you think about everything you're grateful for. Name 10 things you're grateful for as you're walking. It works beautifully. But you can literally feel the shift with the gratitude. If you sit there and write, I have a regular practice, which sometimes I drop, but for the most part, I would say it's a very regular practice of writing, 10 things that I'm grateful for and why. You can go into that practice in whatever kind of mindset you're coming into it, and you'll literally feel how your brain is changing as you're doing it, and you're getting happier, more positive. I mean, it's like walking. I think with exercise, there's no question you feel differently when you're done. Whatever, even if you do just take a 10-minute walk, you still feel better after that walk. Always, I think. So some of these things you can tangibly feel them working, and others are a little more subtle, or they take a little bit longer. But yeah, I think that's the best answer there is. So I think gratitude is one of the number one things.
And I'll add something else onto that. You mentioned sleep, which is also incredibly important. A lot of people's minds spin in evening time and they struggle to wind down and fall asleep. So a way to get into the mindset of sleep, if you are one of those people where your mind is just spinning, to-do lists or worrying or thinking about the future or the past or whatever it is, if you get a journal, it could be a cute journal. It could be a piece of paper if you don't want to spend the money on a journal. Like, it really could be anything. But do this exercise. It's called a brain dump, and just write everything down that's in your mind. Like, it doesn't need to make sense. It doesn't need to be complete sentences or be grammatically correct or anything like that. You're just literally dumping what's in your head. And you could do this for 5 minutes. Doesn't take a long time. And then try and fall asleep and see how you feel. And if you continue to do this exercise regularly, I often will have my clients do this. It interestingly enough, some nuggets typically come out of that. Some nuggets about yourself will come out of that writing that you're not using for anything.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's great. I love that too. And yeah, sleep is a funny, it's a funny thing. I have a lot of trouble with it personally, but I just know not to trust anything I wake up thinking about in the middle of the night. Maybe there's something to trust there, but I can't trust it in the moment. I have to get up the next day and see if it still feels as scary or whatever as it felt in the middle of the night. The middle of the night is a really weird time to think about things. So
yes.
yeah. And, I talk a lot about relationship with money. I also equate it sometimes with people's relationship with food, because honestly, that's something they can relate to better. But we do have this relationship with money and these ideas and these emotional reactions or, crutches or whatever with money. Um, I'm assuming that you deal with that with people as well. So how do you help them to kind of understand their relationship? It doesn't matter whether it's with money or with food. It's a very similar thing.
So we dive into a lot of deep questions and have conversations. So, like, oftentimes when I'm working with someone one on one, we will work together every other week for about an hour. And we will talk. I mean, every person has their unique relationship with food, right? So my philosophy is, everyone's very different. Bioindividuality, if you've heard that term before.
I haven't. What is that term?
So bioindividuality basically means like what works for you may not work for me. There's different body types, there's different pasts that we've had as we've grown up. There's so many different things that make up a person that I would never say to you, okay, you need to be gluten-free, dairy-free, and vegan, or you need to eat 1,500 calories a day, or anything like that, because it's just not a one-size-fits-all approach. And I think there are a lot of people out there that are trying to do a one-size-fits-all approach, and that doesn't work. So I'm really trying to help people make changes that they want to make that are good for them, that are sustainable and lasting, where the person feels really good about it in their own skin. And sometimes that means we are unpacking a lot of personal things that are tied to food. There's
Right.
body image, and there's eating disorders, and there's disordered eating, and a lot of people were raised in like the fat-free era, and some of it is just learning about nutrition and like what actually is good for you, and how do you read a label? How do you know if there's a lot of added sugars to a product? Just because something's gluten-free, does that mean it's good for you? There's so much information out there. And I think a lot of people, excuse me, are really confused. And so we unpack all of that around the person and their needs, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's really personalized. I can't just like answer that as one thing. And
Right.
I would imagine it's the same with money. Everybody has their own personal issues with money, right?
Right. Right. And I really love what you said, because everybody has their own upbringing, their own beliefs that were passed down, their own issues, like you said. And they also believe, or they're kind of pushed to believe, that there's this formula and you just follow it and you make money and you're happy forever. And it's the same thing. It's for each person, they need to know who they are and their lifestyle and everything else. And then, to pick and choose what kinds of things will work for them financially. Just because everyone out there is making money in the stock market doesn't mean that you're necessarily a person who wants to trade stocks. And that's okay. There are other things you can do. And there are millions of ways to track your money. So everybody wants to put a budget or something in front of you and say, just use this. And maybe you can't. I literally have worked with people who cannot look at a spreadsheet or cannot, do certain things. And that's fine. There are many other ways that you can manage money. So I love what you said, because it is customizable. And I don't, but that takes understanding yourself pretty well. It also takes filtering through all the information out there, which is just tremendous. And I think for nutrition, it's even worse. I mean, I've myself tried to just, listen to all these different people and try to figure out what's actually right and what's not. It's almost
So
impossible.
this is what I'm going to tell you. You need to listen to you
Mhm.
because you actually know what's right. Most of us know what's right for us inside of us.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's hard to implement, but I think tuning into yourself is really, really important.
Yeah, that's great. I agree. And I think that goes for money too. But I think yeah, we lived in just this age where there's so much information that we can, take in all day, every day. And so we're constantly feeling like there's a better way to do things. And we're ambitious humans. We're all trying to do the best we can. And sometimes we don't do anything until we feel we've found the best answer. And with money, that doesn't work well, because a lot of time can go by and you haven't done anything. You haven't invested, you haven't done anything, because you're waiting, to find out the right information first. So,
And that makes me think of when you say that, it, makes me think of clients or people thinking about, becoming a client because fear is holding them back, which would
yeah.
be the same thing with money, right? Like fear is holding you back. I mean, we need to dive into why. Like,
Hmm.
what is the why behind this fear? Are you afraid of being successful? A lot of people actually are.
Right.
Like, they don't know what their life is going to look like, in this new way.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's a brilliant point. Because that is a big deal. People are, whether they want to be in the place they're in, they're at least comfortable there. They know how to navigate it. So they might say, "Oh, I want something else," but there's a certain comfort level in being exactly where they are that kind of holds them in place too, because of the fear. Exactly what you said. And yeah.
And I think that if you do want to be somewhere else, whether it's with money or your health and wellness, you need to have a clear vision of what you want. And sometimes you need a guide like me or, like someone else to help you figure out what it is you want because you may not know what you want.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people struggle in that they know they want to be healthy or they know they want to be well, but the vision is clouded or it's just not clear.
Hmm.
So until you have that clear vision, it's hard to make changes that will take you to your goal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a clear vision is incredibly important. And that's part of, when you're doing the gratitude statements and you're thinking about these things on your walks, you can get clarity there. I don't find that anybody gets a lot of clarity sitting at their desk with a notepad trying to like write down what they want. It really comes to you in these kind of unexpected times, I feel. Um, and the other thing, this understanding why do you want this, why do you want to lose weight or gain money or whatever it is, because sometimes our why isn't that clear either, and that
Mhm.
contributes to creating the vision. And I love what you said, because it does sometimes change your identity a little bit, or you feel it will. And if you identify in a certain way, maybe you identify as someone who's always struggling with their bills, you don't want that, but it's an identity that you have that's actually hard to shake. And what do you have to maybe say about the identity idea?
I think that if you have some negative images of yourself
Mm,
or think like oh what's the word I'm looking for? Some I think you have to it's almost like that negative voice in your
yeah.
head that's telling you you are something. I'm not successful. I'm not good at making money. I'm fat.
Hmm.
I'm unhealthy. All of those kinds of like all of that negative self-talk is the mindset thing we were talking about earlier. So it's how can I realize that those are thoughts that are coming into my head, but they are not me? And how do I let those go and replace them with the thoughts, I'm beautiful. I'm healthy. I'm authentic. I'm wealthy. Whatever it is that
Yeah.
you want to be, you need to live and breathe it. And when the negativity is coming in, you need to flick it away.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. And that just goes back to being really conscious of your thoughts, which you do very easily after you learn to do it. And then, but before you ever even know that you can be conscious of your own thoughts, it sounds difficult and you don't really understand it. But that's a beautiful thing when you can actually, and not that you always say the perfect things after that, but you will learn to hear your thoughts and decide in your own mind whether they're the thoughts you really think you should be having or do they need to be tweaked. So
And
when,
the body listens to what
mm,
you say.
yeah,
And so does the universe for that matter.
yeah,
Right? Like
right,
I firmly believe that.
yeah,
So if you're putting out into the world that you are successful and happy and healthy and living your best life, your body's going to hear that, the universe hears that, and you are going to make that happen for yourself. If you're putting out into the world, I suck, I'm ugly, woe is me, I have no money, I'm not successful, like the same thing, it's going to come back at you in a very negative way. So I think the first step is really just keying in or tuning into what is going on in your mind regularly, and then finding ways to shift that voice into a more positive voice.
yeah, couldn't agree more. That's so great for people to hear. And if you don't know how to do it, like you said, a coach or a therapist or somebody will be able to help you identify what's going on and like you said earlier, to ask you the right questions so that you can see, oh, I guess it's surprising how people don't really know how they talk to themselves either. I mean, I point it out to people all the time who just habitually will say some negative things to themselves. And it almost becomes kind of funny, like, it's their little joke and self-deprecating and all of that. And, um,
Mm-hmm.
but, yeah, as you said, you're putting that out there into the universe for it. It doesn't know whether it's funny or not funny. The universe just takes it in and sort of does its own thing with it. But, yeah, tell us a little about your podcast.
So, my podcast is called the Art of Living Well podcast, and it is co hosted with another woman. We co founded it, and we've been podcasting for about 4 years. We drop episodes weekly on Wednesdays, and it's really a health and wellness podcast focused on mind, body, and spirit. But it's about encouraging listeners to find their art of living well, whatever that may be. And so, like I mentioned earlier, we sometimes talk about movement and mindset and stress and nutrition and sleep and kind of all of those core things with health and wellness. But we also talk about, we bring experts on and talk about a lot of newer modalities that maybe you haven't heard of. We just had a guest on talking about methylene blue, which is something I didn't know a lot about, or stem cell therapy, or, I mean, cold plunge and sauna. And so just all over the place. We've had healers on and people that do, healing through their minds and breath work, all kinds of really cool, interesting guests. So it's really a lot of fun.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. And there are so many modalities. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. If you haven't found that thing, if meditation just isn't for you or whatever, there are so many options that you could try. I just recently did a really intense breathwork session. Like, I did not expect it to be this big emotional transformative thing, but it was really intense. And so that was new to me. I mean, I thought we'd go in and just do some deep breathing, but it's not what it was. So, yeah, I think it's fascinating how many modalities there are, and it's fun. It's fun to try them and just find the ones that resonate with you. So that's great that your podcast does that for people.
Yeah. And I would encourage your listeners to try those things out and figure out what does resonate with you.
Yeah, exactly. And when you think about stress on its own, since we kind of started with that, and people generally do have a bit of money stress, not everybody. I recently talked to somebody who said, I have never had a day of money worries in my life. And it's not wasn't because he was rich at all. I mean, he's totally not. He's a regular guy with, had a good career and just managed his money well. And I realized when he said that how rare that is. Like you never hear that. People always have some level of money stress. So just, to kind of wrap up, what are some of your favorite stress relievers? We've talked about walking and exercise, but do you want to elaborate a little?
I mean, those are two of my favorites,
Hmm.
but even meeting up with a friend and just chatting or laughing, um, spending time with my dog, who's always happy to see me no matter what is going on, is stress relieving. Petting her is stress relieving.
Yeah.
Deep breathing, I find to be very stress relieving. Even dancing, shaking, like, I don't know if you can see me, but
Yeah.
just like doing this and
Yeah.
shaking your hands and moving your body is really, I mean, you do this for 15 seconds and you can almost like feel the stress shaking out of your body.
Hmm.
There's so many things that you can do to relieve stress that I think, trying to loosen the muscles in your body. A lot of times people will clench everything up. Don't want to
Right.
clench it up. We want to just relax, breathe. Um, but breathing is the easiest way to calm your system down
Yeah, I agree. Breathing is really something else. When you start using it for that purpose, it's another one where you can feel the change
immediate.
immediate. Yeah, it's really and again, everything you mentioned is free. So there really is no, money component to those things. Yeah, I love that. And I love what you said earlier about time because I think of money is a currency, obviously, but I feel like time is also a currency. And to use your time in the ways that you've been discussing today is such a good use of your time. So, I was pretty much of a workaholic earlier in my life. So I've tried to shift this story I have in my mind all the time that I'm just too busy, don't have time to something where the types of things that you've been talking about and doing these things for ourselves are, that is what my time should be going to first and foremost. And then the other things will just benefit from that. And it's, we really do have to change our idea. Taking time to take care of yourself will buy you time for the other things because the other things you're inefficient at them anyway when you're not taking
Right.
care of yourself.
I
Hmm.
mean, if you're not sleeping,
Yeah.
that just spirals into every aspect of your life, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're not sleeping, and then a person can become cranky, and then maybe they're eating poorly, and then they're fighting with their loved ones or their friends or their coworkers because they're underslept and not thinking clearly, and then inefficiency in your job. I mean, it just spirals.
Yeah, yeah. And you take, 30 minutes or an hour or whatever to take care of yourself and everything gets better. It's very much, again, like money, set up your foundation, your emergency savings and, know what you're spending and all of that. And, you know, that's everything's going to just evolve out of that nice foundation to help you to create the financial well-being as well. So, well, Marnie, thank you. I wish we had more time, but this has been a lot of fun. Can you tell people how to reach you and find you in various ways and your podcast as well?
Yes. So you can email me at Marnie, Marnie, at zenfullifecoaching.com, which is zenfullifecoaching.com. My book is My Song Unleashed, and it does talk about some of the stuff we talked about today. It's a memoir, so it's my story. And if you Google it, it can be found pretty much anywhere. It's on Audible, it is Kindle, or you can get the hard copy and Amazon or any other bookstore that you may love, or even the libraries. And my podcast is the Art of Living Well podcast, and that is on all platforms. So pick your poison.
Yeah.
And I'd love to have you reach out.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. And your book sounds very intriguing. I love the title of it. So thank you for
Thank
sharing
you.
that as well. I'll put all of it in the show notes, the links to everything. And yeah, thank you. I feel uplifted just from having this conversation with you. So I can
I'm
only
so
imagine how
glad.
your
It's
clients
been really
feel.
fun.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, thank you. And we'll be in touch. I'll be reading and listening. So take care.
Okay. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. And audience, thank you so much for being here. We love it when you listen to the Money and You podcast, and we would love it especially if you would give us a review and share the podcast with your friends who want to learn more about their financial lives and how to have that financial well-being and freedom that they're really looking for. So you can also find us on all the platforms. You can find us on Roku and the Limit Free Life YouTube channel. And you can reach out to me, Michelle, at limitfreelife.com, and get some information on some of my programs that will help you to build that relationship with money and learn all the practical things that you've always wanted to learn about money as well. So thanks so much. We'll see you next week.